Our next presenter does the addressing for the city of Raleigh, Mr. Wayne Brewer, and I'm going to just let him go ahead and run with it.
All right, thank you. Now my presentation will actually be, fairly short, if I can get it open. Basically, what we're talking about today is going to be a countywide master address repository. And the who, what, when, where, and why of the reasoning to have one. And it's actually going to go a little bit out of order because it sounded better going who, what, instead of what, who. So we're going to go with the who benefits. And as Scott, spoke to before, I can't really think of anyone that would not benefit from it, but just to name a few, and you're looking at your public safety, better location of incidents, being able to have your EMS, your fire, law enforcement, anyone to get to a specific location and not be clouded by having multiple databases or multiple systems having different addresses. So you have that one centralized, address location, and you can get that public safety, to that location. Planning and permitting. I've dealt with this for 16 years. Planning to come in. Someone comes in to have a utility added or something of that nature to start a permit, and they always think they know their address. That's the one that they've used for many, many years. Public utilities, they have their own database. They say that this is what mine is. This is what my address is. But by having this one centralized database, then you will have, you cut that out. You cut out public utilities saying that it's 538 and permitting saying it's 540, so forth. So you have one centralized location for those addresses, dealing with those. And speaking back to the utilities, same thing. And then also, whenever you benefit, who benefits from the MAR is there's several government programs. Just one here listed, LUCA. You've probably been in several other, presentations, speaking about LUCA and so forth. And there's a lot of government monies that is provided, based off of, census information, and that census information is based off of the addresses. So if you have one centralized location showing the authoritative address, then you will be able to gain those extra monies for your community. I think we went through LUCA and going off some information that Martha provided earlier. We ended up, I think last time, with an additional 17,000. I think is what it was, 17,000 additional addresses, and that brings more money into the Wake County and City of Raleigh area. Now we go to what a master address repository is. Basically you have again a database of standardized structures, and structures here meaning buildings and so forth. Features, center lines, and other location identifiers, mostly represented visually through GIS platform as a point with a map, coordinates, and a universal unique identifier. And that's pretty self-explanatory. Here, this is a picture of what we now have here at the City of Raleigh, and also working with Wake County. Each individual representation visually, as far as we have our homes, we have the various feature types such as red light cameras, red lights, and so forth like that. Actually, I don't believe it showed up in that one. I apologize. But we do have them. I promise you we do. And we do address them, just like Scott mentioned earlier. The City of Raleigh and several other municipalities around here, we actually will address anything from irrigation meter to the home. So we have so many addresses in Raleigh and in Wake County. but the actual livable addresses are probably a third of the actual addresses that we have. What can a MAR be used for, or when can a MAR be used? Well, basically, it can be used with many different systems. Your 311 system, someone would like to report junk cars or anything like that in the street, grass is not being cut, stuff of that nature. This, you have one centralized, again, I keep using it over and over again, but one centralized location that all of these different areas, 311, 911, permitting, everyone can pull from these addresses and use the same address. They can validate that you have, trash pickup at that address. That address is a real address. It is your address, and it is there for you to use for the various things. A 911, you want to make sure, and it was pointed out to me earlier that I believe that Myrtle must not be spelled correctly, but if you have Aunt Myrtle, I apologize if I butchered her name, but she's having chest pains. You want to make sure that your aunt does have the services there to her, and you do want to be able to replace your AC in the middle of the summer with it 105 degrees outside, and you want to make sure that the people that are in your jurisdictions can get those services. Now this one is getting a little more deeper into it. Where does the data come from? And whenever the city of Raleigh started several years ago, putting together a MAR, and I keep referring back to the city of Raleigh, and this is referring to a county MAR, and I will get to that. But we started back several years ago, starting with our MAR, and we collected data from several different places. Public utilities, some from the county, our permitting system, and a couple others. And so we had to scrub the data, go through, look at it, and we're still scrubbing. Scott said no one's 100%. I like to beg to differ. We're 99.9, and he's right. We're 99.9. No, I'm just kidding. We're nowhere close to that at this moment. But every day we're still cleaning stuff. And if it was a perfect world with addresses, I wouldn't have a job. It would be set up and we'd be done and we'd walk away. But still, here I am 16 years later. So that doesn't mean we were that messed up. But once you get your information together, and so going into the county aspect of it, the city of Raleigh maintains roughly 45% of the addresses it covers 45% of the addresses as far as being in our database. That we have 6 smaller municipalities that we supply water to, and then we're going to be housing their addresses, and that's going to feed into Wake County. Wake County, this is a MAR that is being built currently, and will go live probably, about a year or less. And then we will truly have a county-wide MAR that that the lines there are more blurred. You can receive the same information if you go and speak to our county counterparts as you would coming to me and speaking to at the city. So that will help out a great deal. And let's see. Same information that I spoke to before. It's a centralized, authoritative, standard format. Your trusted source, and it helps increase accuracy because you have that centralized location of addresses, and you're not allowing other departments, divisions, or smaller municipalities that are feeding off you to basically make up their own address. This way, you have this authoritative address. You're not allowing them to go away from any of this information. And I apologize, but that's my slides. We did kind of make sure that this one was a little bit shorter because we knew that you had already been to several of the other addressing things, heard about the standard, heard about various things. So we also have another presentation that's going to go directly after this, and to have a little more discussion, open discussion for everyone to join into. So if anyone has any questions about this very short presentation, please feel free. Yes, ma'am.
When you create your countywide MAR and you have, are you going to, the individual cities are going to do their own addressing in their own database and then like nightly or something, load that data in or replication or whatever into the countywide?
Well, right now, I would have to say that it's still up for discussion on some of them. It's going to depend on how they wish to do it. And David, and I do apologize, I forgot to mention that I want to thank David Hunt from Wake County for providing some of this information today and everything, and he may be able to speak a little bit more to this because he is actually going out and working with the individual municipalities, the smaller ones, and seeing how. But you do have the options of, like with City of Raleigh, our database is going to be over at Wake County, and we will be working directly with that individual that database. Other municipalities, they may wish to do an overnight upload, and then it will have to be added into the database. But as far as the City of Raleigh, we will be working directly in the database.
Make your edits directly in the MAR.
Yes, ma'am.
The countywide MAR.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about Wake County that's unique is we've got 12 municipalities. Every single one of them has their own authority to do addressing. But when you get buy-into a MAR, it's all going to be pushed up to a central repository. So when it comes time to do things like Luca, that it can just come from one place. They don't have to do 12 different submittals.
Right.
And the way we're looking at it is it's going to be instantaneous. They can add an address, push it up to the MAR, and then it'll be available to anybody per day, within minutes.
Well, in the county where I work, I do the countywide GIS, and we do all the addressing for the county, and then we have 2 major cities that do their own, and we do all the other cities. So we're trying to convince them either let us take over that authority and do the addressing, or to have them do the addressing in our database, so that the end result is the same either way, that all that data is in one database,
Yeah.
like you just
And
said.
that's another benefit, because visually, if the town assigns addresses to a subdivision, as the county oversight, we can see what's going on. If they have a question, we can look at it, give advice or consultation, or help them out before it gets pushed up to the MAR.
Yeah, so I was just wondering what other people choose, which route other people choose to combine it.
Any other questions? Start into this.
All right.